Welcome to the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. Thanks so much for joining us here as we are closing in on the end of May, going to be heading into June, heading into this summer. 12 years strong here at the PST Podcast Show. Again, thanks for watching. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you are new to watching us, and if you're listening on whatever podcast platform you're on, it's great to be in your ears. I'm Jeff Warren. I'm here with my buddy, Len Hunsicker. Buddy, man, how you doing?
I don't know what this summer is that you speak of because I had a rain jacket on today. I was getting poured on. It was like low 50s.
We're almost there.
It's the end of May. Like I don't know. I'm not feeling the summer part so far.
I know it's going to get there. I'm telling you, folks, it's going to get there, Len. In June, I think things are going to start turning around because, like, as you know, anymore we don't have seasons, right? We just have cold and then crap, which we're in now, and then hot blazing summer. That's what's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Cold is crap to me too. So it's all the same thing.
You sound like our buddy Jay.
I can't function in it. I can't think. I can't do anything in the cold.
Well, I got to tell you, I like your hat. Is that a new hat?
Mm-mm.
I haven't seen that one in a while.
No,
what?
I've
I don't know.
had
Maybe
it for a while.
All right. Very nice. Nice Phillies hat that Len is wearing here. And we're certainly going to be getting into this Phillies team because they have been fantastic as of late. Best team in Major League Baseball. We're certainly going to be getting into that team on the show. But first, we're going to be getting into this week in Philly sports history, then some Phillies talk. Also going to talk about Bryce Harper getting nailed in the arm and elbow from a pitch by Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves. So many of us saw that, and we were just absolutely it took our breath away. Oh, my gosh, Bryce Harper might be injured for a long time. X-rays negative. We don't know when he's going to be back in the lineup, but we're going to dive into that in terms of our Phillies talk. And then we're going to get into some Flyers talk because the organization's bringing back Ian Laperriere. They're bringing Lappy back to Philly. I tell you, they just love bringing guys back.
Hey, you take a puck to the face, blocking a shot, and you're set for life.
Absolutely, yes. And from there, we're going to get into some football talk this week. We've got a storyline we're following here. We know that the tush push, we talked about it last week, was alive and well. We know that it is going to be for at least this coming season. But afterwards, there was a report that came out. Roger Goodell and the NFL, they're trying to take a hard look at the salary cap system. And they're going to do this in the future to make sure that teams are managing their rosters with the spirit of the system, folks. This is obviously a direct jab at the Eagles and Howie Roseman for how they've been handling players, salaries, and contracts over these years. So we're going to give our thoughts there. Now, what we're throwing down on the table this week, we've got our good friend, he's been coming on for so many years, Brandon Lee Gowton from bleedinggreennation.com. We're going to talk about this Eagles offseason a bit and some other NFL storylines as well. We're going to dive into the NFC East and what's been going on with some of these teams as well. So, Len, I think we got to get to our first story and first segment, as we've been doing here this week in Philly sports history. Now, I'm going to go through 4 different dates here, and all of them are so unique in their own way. And then we may talk about 1 or 2 of these after. So, buddy, I'm going to start off with May 24th, 1935. Yes, May 24th, 1935. The Philadelphia Phillies participated in Major League Baseball's very first night game against the Cincinnati Reds at Crossley Field. This historic event introduced nighttime baseball to the major leagues, really changed how fans experienced the game. And moving along, May 20th, 1974. Ho-ho, folks. It was, I was not alive. Len, you were not alive during that time either.
Correct.
But it was the Flyers' first Stanley Cup parade. Following their first Stanley Cup victory on May 19th, 1974, the Flyers celebrated with a massive parade on May 20th. An estimated 2 million fans lined Broad Street and Independence Mall to honor the Broad Street Bullies, making it one of the largest gatherings in the city's history. And then from there, moving along to May 31st, 1983. Oh, yes, indeed, folks. And who knows if we'll ever see one of these again. Yes, Len, you and I were both alive, but I was a little tyke at this point. The Philadelphia 76ers, they clinched the NBA championship on May 31st, and they completed a 4-game sweep of the Los Angeles Lakers, led by Julius Erving, and in the finals MVP, Moses Malone. The first team title since 1967, and really solidified their place in NBA history. And finally, May 24th, 1999. This is interesting. On May 24th, 1999, the Phillies featured a unique battery with pitcher Joel Bennett and catcher Gary Bennett sharing the same surname. And for the first time in team's history, the Phillies won that game 5-4 over the Montreal Expos at Veterans Stadium. So lots happening this week in the world of Philly sports history, my friend.
Yeah, kind of. It's funny just listening to some of that. Just a couple things jump out. One that what was it? What was the day of the Flyers parade?
The day of the Flyers parade
Yeah,
was May 20th.
May 20th. So May 20th is when they're having the parade, which means the Stanley Cup Finals had been wrapped up probably a couple days before.
The day before.
Yeah, so it's now almost June, and we're still in the conference finals for hockey. So yeah, I mean, just how much everything's gotten pushed back. And then it's funny, you go through, you talk about, okay, the Sixers won in '83, so it's just like, okay, I was this age when the Eagles last won. Obviously, I'm basically the same age I am now. I was 32 when the Phillies last won in '08. I was 7 when I was when the Sixers last won, and I was a year away from being born when the Flyers won their last one. So just going through all that, it's just like, holy smokes. It's been a while for both those teams.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to mention with you, because, if we look at our contemporary history, the world of Philly sports has seen a decent amount of success over these years.
It has not been bad when you consider that like chasm between the Sixers in '83 and the Phillies winning in 2008. I mean, and there were some, obviously the Flyers made a couple cup finals, and, there was some, the Sixers made an NBA final, the Phillies in '93 making the World Series final, but no actual winning of anything. So, I mean, it's been decent. I mean, I'll take it.
Exactly. Look, I'll take the Super Bowl wins. I'll take what the Phillies have done recently. Hasn't produced a championship, but it has been exciting to watch in terms of baseball for this city. It really has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a great segment. And let us know if you like our This Week in Philly Sports History. Again, Len and I bringing this back after we started 12 years ago. It was one of our ongoing segments. So hope you like it. PhiladelphiaSportsTable@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you here on the show. If you have any ideas or thoughts about anything in the world of Philly sports, reach out to us. Again, PhiladelphiaSportsTable@gmail.com. Moving along here, Len, we're going to dive now into the fact that the Phillies have the best record in Major League Baseball. It has been pretty fantastic watching this team. Sometimes these games have been nail biters for sure, but as of late, and it's interesting reflecting on recent PST podcast shows. And if you look, even if you listen to other podcasts, one of our favorites is the Hitting Season podcast with our friends John Stallness, Liz Rocher, and Justin Clue, talking about how initial and early struggles, they've really seemed to smooth themselves out, including, I hesitate to say, and I should probably knock on wood, the bullpen. The bullpen has been performing pretty well as of late, and especially
that's with Alvarado being suspended. Yeah.
The whole concept of next man up, I think they're meeting the moment. And Orion Kerkering, who we had some very, very, how can I say, we're very trepidatious about what his season was going to look like. He has really been smoothing some things out as well. So it has been really fun watching this Phillies team. And, I think if they continue at this pace, and yes, they're playing teams that they should be beating, but if they continue at this pace, I think it's going to keep the confidence level up there with this team, and probably going to be atop of the NL East, for some time here.
Yeah, it's funny. We earlier in the season we had talked about, they don't seem to have that spark. I mean, they have a winning record, but I guess maybe they'll be in the wild card hunt, whatever. Since May 6th, they have gone on a run. I'd say past 21 games, 17-4. So
Yeah.
they've been on a heater, recently, like really. And, there were some teams in there that aren't as good. You had that stretch with Pittsburgh and Colorado, and then the A's, and they ended up winning, what, 7 out of those 9 games.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, yeah, it's 8 out of those 9 games rather. Sorry. Um, so yeah, they did what they had to do against teams that aren't as good, but that's everybody's going to play those teams. So it's not like they're
Yeah.
feasting on a cream puff schedule that nobody else is going to play. So yeah, they've been great, and they've been playing a lot better. I was able to watch. I worked overnights the past couple of days, so I was able to watch the entire A's series. That was tougher than I thought it was going to be, because the all 3 of those games against I guess you can't call them Oakland anymore, and you're not allowed to call them Sacramento, but
The minor league team.
yeah, yeah, wherever they're from.
Yeah.
Those were all like dogfights. All 3 of those games were tight. I think a couple win extra innings. So those were tough games, but they've really been handling business lately. It's been really nice to see.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And again, it's what we want to see, because we know this team has the talent to do it. I talked on our opposition territory pod this week with our guest as we were diving into the Seattle Mariners team, just about how their team is much different in terms of their offense, in terms of their batting, than the Phillies. I mean, we just know that this Phillies team, it's all about power. It's all about the launch angle. It's all about, how many home runs are they going to be able to hit during a game to really generate the offense, while a lot of other teams are playing small ball and being successful at it. There are times when I wish that they can turn that switch on and off of, okay, we need to play some small ball now in this moment. But then again, it's hard to complain because the team is doing so well and they have the best record in Major League Baseball,
Ideally, the best teams don't just beat you the same way every single time. They can do different things. They can, okay, one game we're going to hit 6 home runs and just bury you with offense. Another game, they're doing the small ball thing. The best teams can do all of that. And I think that's all we want for the Phillies, is for them to be, the best version of themselves and be able to, not be a one-trick pony, I guess, offensively. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
reasonable.
Yeah, it is. It's reasonable for sure. What's not reasonable is a guy named Spencer Strider from the Atlanta Braves, the dirty Atlanta Braves. Spencer Strider nails Bryce Harper with a 4-seam fastball right in his elbow. And we were all just holding our breaths as Bryce Harper left the game. Fortunately, the x-rays came back negative. Great sign, considering it's the same elbow that Bryce Harper had repaired with surgery after the 2022 season. But man, that freaking Spencer Strider, how about him trolling Phillies fans with his post-game remarks, saying, because the Athletics' Jason Stark asked Spencer Strider about his experience pitching at Citizens Bank Park, and in particularly about the crowd. And he says, "Oh, I love pitching here. I mean, where else do they chant your name? Ask how your family's doing. They seem very interested in my well-being, and I appreciate that." God, I hate this guy. I really do. I'm disliking him.
The remark that kind of I guess made me pause a little bit was like, well, I thought he had, the armor, like, because of these guys, basically they have so many, like, so much padding when they come to the plate now.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't realize, he thought that Harper was being a baby at first, and then he said, oh, I didn't realize he didn't have the elbow pad on, as if that would have made hitting him in that spot okay.
Exactly.
Still, I don't think it was intentional, but at the same time, I don't, think he probably handled that, the media scrum, I guess, as well as he could have there, for sure. But yeah, I was watching that game too, and as soon as I saw it, I said, "Oh, god damn, here we go!" Like, just like, come on, man.
I know, but
especially coming off the run that they've been on. I mean, that's and Harper's,
and he's
been
fantastic.
Yes, and I was just about to bring that up. This is a guy that a couple weeks ago was hitting like 230 something. He's up to 267. The power's been, it's not overwhelming. 8 home runs, but he's hitting the ball a lot better than he was a couple weeks ago. So you hate to see a guy that is in a groove now have an interruption, due to having to sit out for a couple days, because does he lose his timing? That's the last thing you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I go. I want to bring up what we were kind of just talking about, like in terms of the bullpen, how the loss of Alvarado was huge, and Bryce Harper doesn't seem like he's going to be out for as long as Jose Alvarado, but that next man up mentality, I think, is really important right now. And if the team is seeing a bullpen that's able to do this, and if the team is able to rally behind the scenes like they have done with the bullpen to make sure that that next man up is going to be feeling good about
Yeah.
going into certain game situations. And I think the same is going to be true for, whoever's going to be taking over for Bryce Harper and whoever is going to be that next man up as well. I think the team, as much as it stinks to not have Harper there for maybe a couple games, a few games, I think they're in a good position and a good place mentally for it to actually happen and for them to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, what happened in that game is after Harper went down, you had Sosa come in and play third, and then you moved Bohm over to first. I would imagine that's
Yeah.
just going to be, what it's going to be for the time being. And, um, we'll see how it works out. I mean, Sosa's been great in his limited role off of the bench so far. I mean, with anything, I think the more, you have a bench guy at the plate, the more maybe they get exposed a little bit. So maybe that'll happen with Sosa a little bit. But I mean, he's shown himself to be capable in his time here. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it's nothing that, he's not out for like months or whatever. Hopefully it's, maybe a week or two at the most. And, they can just hold the fort until he gets back.
Yeah. It was really great to see, though, the Phillies winning that game, beating Spencer Strider, because, like, of course, we have known over the years here, Spencer Strider's gotten the best of the Phillies, his fair share of times. In 9 career regular season appearances, Spencer Strider has a 2.15 ERA and has struck out 82 Phillies in 54 and a third innings of work. So the Phillies being able to beat him, and given what happened to Bryce Harper, I think it really said a lot about this team. Just them rallying together at this point. Like it's just fun baseball. I'm so glad we're not watching the crap from from back in April that was just really tough to watch. So Spencer Strider's gotten the best of this Phillies team, but they got the best of him this past week here, and it was really good to see.
Yeah, and a couple big games tomorrow. Obviously, we're recording this on Wednesday, May 28th. They got rained out today, so we're looking at a doubleheader tomorrow, 105 and 645. So, anytime you're playing a division opponent, especially the Braves, because I'm never gonna be certain that they're out of it. So, anytime you can put a foot on their neck, you need to do it.
Got to do it. Absolutely. All right. Well, we are going to head to our first break here. But before we do, follow us on various social media sites. We are over on Instagram. Search out the Philadelphia Sports Table. I'm over on Instagram at Mr. Jeff Warren. We're also on Twitter/X at Philadelphia PST. You can follow me at Jeffrey_Warren. I'm over on TikTok. Search me out there. You can like our Facebook page. Search out the Philadelphia Sports Table. We're on Threads. Eric and I are over on Blue Sky. You can follow us over there. Len, you are still taking your social media diet, and I think it's fantastic. I think it's great.
I don't see it ending anytime soon. I mean, I haven't really had the itch to, the whole Blue Sky thing potentially interests me, but by and large, I don't really miss social media that much.
You don't miss social media that much?
Yeah, no, not really.
All right, sounds good. I wish I could be. I'm like, I feel like I'm always there because I hate it so much, but I'm like, no, I can't do it.
That's not you. That's people. I mean, in this age that we're in, technologically driven. I don't know. I don't want to spend my life doing this. I just don't.
Give you all the credit in the world, buddy. Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to take our first break here. We will be back in just a bit. Stick with us. All right, we are back. Len had his drink there. Fantastic. How was it? Was that a tasty one, my friend?
It's good.
Very nice.
Scotch is good for the soul.
There it is. There you go. It's a late night here, a little scotch, watching some sports. That's what life should be about.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope, not at all. All right, folks, let's dive into the Flyers here. And not too much has been going on with this team, but we did want to mention the fact that they are bringing Ian Laperriere back to Philadelphia. Yes, he is no longer the coach of the Lehigh Valley Phantoms within the farm system. He's now going to be an official advisor, advisor to hockey operations. That's the title here. Wanted to just basically give our thoughts here on this move. Len, there was, of course, some grumbling with the Flyers fan base because, the thought was that Lappy was kind of failing upwards and that the Flyers were continuing to recycle their guys within the organization here. And maybe that's true, maybe not, depending on how much influence a quote advisor in this capacity has. But Laperriere's coached the Phantoms for the last few seasons, and this is a team that just had a pretty successful season. But I do have to say this, like, I don't mind if the organization is going to bring in a coach for the Phantoms that may be a little bit different. You may want someone different coaching this team, coaching the prospects in Lehigh Valley when you've got guys like Jet Lutchenko, Emil Andre, who are developing and at that point in their career. So I don't know, just something for folks to think about. I kind of like that it's going to be somebody. Well, maybe it's going to be somebody new. I shouldn't put the cart before the horse here. Maybe the Flyers do, like, I don't know. Maybe they make some guy in the front office we don't know, the coach of the Phantoms. But I was thinking, all right, I'm fine with it. If he's going to be a quote advisor, whatever the heck that is, then let some new blood come into this organization and even the farm system here. I don't know. What were your thoughts here?
I just, whoever the Phantoms hire as their coach, it needs to be cohesion, because there was that story where like the Phantoms played a different way than the Flyers played under Tortorella.
Yes.
And guys would come up and they'd have to learn new terminology and their head would be on a swivel. Rick Tocchet has to come in and say, this is the way the big club's playing, and this is the way the parent club or the Phantoms are going to be playing as well. It's got to be cohesion across the two, or else you're setting your kids up for failure. So whoever they hire, Tocchet has to say, this is the style we're going to play, and it's going to be that, in the AHL and the NHL is that's what I want.
Yes. Yeah. You had mentioned that a couple months ago. I remember when we were talking about that, you had mentioned that. And I think that cohesion is absolutely necessary. How are you going to develop players one way, get them to the big club down in Philly, and then it's a completely new system here? So I like the fact.
You're just basically tying a hand behind your back with some of these kids if you do things that way. So I don't know. It was strange to me.
It's strange, but then again, I do feel that level of hope and optimism. And I know we weren't necessarily going to get into, what the future of this Flyers team and organization is going to hold. We're going to have Madeline Campbell from BroadStreetHockey.com. She's going to be joining us on Monday for the Table Talk show to kind of dive into some prospects and who we should be looking at in terms of the NHL draft and who the Flyers may be taking in the first round, some interesting prospects. But with all these changes, Rick Tocchet, the fact that there's going to be that new head coach in Lehigh Valley, Len, and then you've got these first-round picks, these 3 first-round picks, like there is a lot on the line here. There's a ton on the line here for Danny Briere and this Flyers organization moving forward. And it's like they have to nail all of this right now for there to be any chance that this team is competitive in the future. They have to nail this right now.
Yeah, the next 2 off seasons, I think, are going to set up the next maybe 15 years for this team in terms of this year. You got new coach in. You've got a chance to really stock your system with contributors in the future in this draft, because you mentioned the 3 first rounders. There's 4 second rounders. Those guys can contribute. If you go back and look on Wikipedia at NHL drafts from different years, you can go into the second round a lot of time and find all-stars, find contributors, guys that that can help you win. So that's going to be big. And then next year, if I believe the cap is supposed to go up, hopefully they don't, spend money on guys that, I don't know. I don't know that
are mid-tier guys.
Crazy. Or guys that just aren't going to really move the needle. Hopefully they don't do that this off season, but maybe next season, once the purse strings open up a little bit, then maybe they can, do what the Flyers under Ed Snyder did, which is, entice people to come here, buy them, because they're going to have the money to be able to do that.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. All right. Well, Good talk there with regard to the Flyers. Oh, I forgot to put the banner for the folks on YouTube. I forgot to put the banner up. We had this one right here. Flyers are bringing Laperriere back to Philly. Oh, man, I forgot to do it. I'm still an amateur here on YouTube.
What are your thoughts of the Laperriere? Do you not care, or does it matter to you one way or the other?
Well, kind of like I said before, it really, I'm kind of like, I'm fine that he's going to the Flyers front office. He has institutional knowledge, quite frankly. I think it's okay. I'm fine with it. I like the fact that there's going to be somebody new, hopefully new, that's going to be coming from the outside into the organization to basically develop these players that we're going to be looking at. Again, Emil Andre, Jet Luchenko. These guys need to develop, and we need that coach. And hopefully it's an outside presence. It's going to be able to bring a different type of philosophy and maybe a different way of doing things, but that can align with what Rick Tocchet is going to be doing. It's exactly like from what you're saying, earlier in the discussion.
So he's coming on as a, special advisor to hockey operations. John LeClaire is also that. Patrick Sharp, also former Flyer, also that. That's not, and so I don't know what those guys do. The senior advisors, the Paul Holmgrens, Bob Clarks, Bill Barbers, I like what
do they all just sit in a conference room, and it's incestuous.
That's my point of I want to know what all these, because how many advisors do you need? What do all, not to bring a political thing into this, but if there was ever a company where Doge maybe needed to come in.
Yes.
And cut some fat. Maybe it's the Flyers.
It's absolutely the Flyers.
Yeah. I just want to be able to walk in the room when they're all sitting around the table. I just want to know, what is it that you do here?
Right. Send him an email, ask for 3 things they've done.
Yeah. That would be pretty great.
What are 3 things in your job responsibilities?
Yeah.
Email back by tomorrow, end of business.
Yeah, That would be awesome.
That'd be great. All right.
I'd love to see that email from Bob Clark, by the way.
Oh, God, wouldn't that be great?
Very profanity laced, probably.
Yeah, probably. Exactly. Get Doge in there. Get him in there. I love the idea. All right. Well, before we let Len go here, and before we get to what we're throwing down on the table, great discussion with Brandon Lee Gowton coming up. We wanted to get into an NFL and an actual Eagles-based storyline, as NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell recently said that the NFL is going to be taking a look at the salary cap system in the future to see if teams are truly managing their rosters with the, quote, spirit of the system. This, as many have thought within Eagles Nation, was a direct jab at the Eagles and Howie Roseman for how they've handled player contracts and salaries over the years. So we wanted to give our thoughts here on this too. And you may be wondering, okay, what are you talking about? What is the integrity issue of the system that the NFL salary cap actually has? As we know, it's a hard cap. And while it's true that there is a cap of money that teams cannot go under, it's the manipulation of the salary cap that Howie Roseman and in fact other teams have done and embarked on over the years via salary to bonus conversions. That has been on the rise since the league's salary cap ceiling initially dropped in 2020 to combat the loss of money that went hand in hand with the COVID season. So, for example here, say if I were a general manager, wanted to pay a player a 1-year, $50 million contract in 2025. I could pay him that $50 million in salary, game checks, and simply pay all of that $50 million on the cap in 2025. But if I wanted to manipulate that number to its extreme, I could pay the difference between his $50 million salary and the league's minimum salary, which maxes out around $1.3 million for a veteran who is at least 7 seasons into his NFL career, and then convert the rest of that money into a signing bonus with 4 void years attached to the end of his 1-year deal to impact the salary cap as little as possible in the short term. So using that second method, the bonus could be spread up to over 5 years on the salary cap, meaning that $50 million player would only cost around $10 million against that 2025 salary cap. Now, we've seen the Eagles and Howie Roseman do this a number of times with one particular guy, which is Lane Johnson. They've done it with a number of veterans over the years, whether it was Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, they've done it with over the years. Len, I hope I explained that right for everybody.
That actually, I think that's very helpful, to be honest with you.
So that is what the NFL is going to be looking into. The Eagles have been successful with this. The Eagles have been successful in a number of different ways on the field, whether it was the tush push that we talked about last week on the show with Eric. The Eagles have been successful from a contractual standpoint in terms of being able to keep their veteran talent as long as they do because of salary cap manipulations. It's all there. It's all there, Len, for them. I mean, there are loopholes and they exploit them for good or for worse. It seems like for worse now because the NFL and other teams are going to be looking into, okay, what's really going on here? And the fact that this Philadelphia Eagles team consistently year after year after year has been able to manipulate this to their benefit. And we've seen a team who is consistently relevant in the NFL year after year, consistently relevant within their division, even though no team in the NFC East has won the division back-to-back years since like 2004, I believe it was.
Yeah, it's not like the Eagles are like, just constantly, going
right
15-1 every year or something like that. I mean, and have like there's in and again, I don't know how a lot of the salary things work, but you look at like and again, different sport, different salary cap, but MLS, and every time there's a big time European player, whether it's Messi or just whoever that comes over, it seems like they go to Miami. And I have the same reaction all the time.
Yeah.
How is this one team able to afford all these people? And, there's loopholes. There's loopholes in every sport, every, CBA that these teams exploit. And, okay, why aren't other teams doing it then?
Yeah.
I'm sure other teams are doing it. And, so I don't know. I just don't understand. If you think somebody's getting an advantage, maybe you hire somebody from their organization and say, hey, show us how to do that.
Yes.
And then, then you're in on it too. Like, I don't know why you'd want to stop that when it's easier just to get somebody to, show you what to do. And I'm sure the Eagles are far from the only team doing this.
Right.
So,
right. It ramped up though during 2020 during COVID, because I mean, the idea of that hard cap, it made sense until COVID. Now teams are well aware of how salary conversions and void years can be used to manipulate the current cap system. So, I guess what Roger Goodell basically was referring to and really wanting to look into, that quote integrity question that, members of the league are asking themselves, is how the NFL treats the accounting of signing bonuses and or roster bonus dollars on the cap, and whether or not that should potentially be changed under the next collective bargaining agreement. I think that's really where this is going to go, because the Philadelphia Eagles have been so good at this manipulation.
To me, it just sounds like you're trying to penalize someone for being smart and using the system that, there are rules. I mean, if that was that big of a deal, they should have made it so that was never even a possibility in the first place for any team to exploit. So, I mean, sorry that he's poking holes in your, in your cap and the way you do things, but, I don't know. Again, you're penalizing somebody for being smart, which is crazy to me.
Len, I don't think the NFL has necessarily been the smartest organization and group of individuals in that front office over the years and decades.
No. Yeah, this is true, but I don't know. You would think, I don't know. I just look at the NFL as this unstoppable juggernaut, and you would just assume that in every position, whether it's rules committee or the accountants or whatever, you're just able to hire the best of the best of the best of the best to make sure that this golden goose that you have continues on just making ungodly amounts of money for you and your teams. So I don't know. I just don't understand how they don't already have those people in place.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they don't, it's a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Yeah.
And they don't have this figured out, but It's certainly a storyline we're going to be following here at the PST Podcast Show. Whenever news breaks about it, we're obviously going to be talking about it here. But Len, before I let you go, I want folks to know that they can reach out to us over email, PhiladelphiaSportsTable@gmail.com. You can write us an email if you have a reaction to anything that we've been talking about here, or if you'd like us to dive into any specific issue within the world of Philly sports or the sports world in general. We'd love to hear from you. Again, PhiladelphiaSportsTable@gmail.com. So, my friend, I'm going to let you go. Do you have any parting words before we get BLG on here to talk more Eagles?
I don't. Weather get warmer, and maybe not rain on every single day that I'm off.
Yes.
That would be nice as well.
Oh.
But yeah, no. Other than that, I got nothing.
You haven't been able to get in the backyard, huh? Because of the rain and stuff to get stuff done back there.
No, I've been able to cut like every 4 days that I work, it's beautiful. Every 4 days that I'm off, it rains. And I'm just looking at my grass going, when am I going to be able to do this again? Like, when am I? So yeah, that kind of stuff.
I had something interesting, and I can say this because I know the guy doesn't listen, but my next door neighbor, he not only did he mention to his son, who then mentioned to my daughter about how high our grass was at some point, which by the way was only about maybe 3-4 inches because of the rain that we saw, this past month, tons of rain. So I was able to get it cut down. And then he actually said to me this past week, he's like, "Oh, the lawn's looking good there, Jeff. Yeah, so you're cutting it shorter." I have a neighbor who is caring way too much about my lawn and how it looks, Len.
Just go in the middle of the night, whatever you can pour on grass to kill it. Just do that. Just do that.
His cameras everywhere.
Oh, he's one of those. Okay.
Yeah, he's got cameras everywhere. And he shot me off a text yesterday. I swear to God, asking you. You've seen my backyard area. We have neighbors that have fences. And so it's like we actually have 2/3 of a fence already in our backyard. He asked if we wanted to go in and split putting up the other part of the fence. So now he doesn't even want to see us, and he wants us to help him pay for it.
It's a shame that you're in the field that you're in, where you have to be a person, because if you had my job, you could literally tell him, and I'm assuming we're going to keep this clean. So
we can. Yeah. But
so I won't say what's in my head, but I think where I'm going.
Just F off,
Yeah, more or less.
Yes. All right, buddy. Well, I'm going to let you go. We're going to take a break, everybody. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Brandon Lee Gowton from bleedinggreennation.com. Stick with us. And joining us from bleedinggreennation.com to dive into this Philadelphia Eagles offseason and what is going to be happening with this team as we are looking forward to the 2025-2026 season. Again, from bleedinggreennation.com, we've got our good friend who's been coming on for so many years, Brandon Lee Gowton, BLG, man. Thanks so much for jumping on this week.
Happy to join. Can't believe we're kind of already here in the standpoint of the Eagles win the Super Bowl, and you just don't get a whole lot of time to really revel in that in terms of just calendar just keeps on going and going.
Yep.
But here we are.
Here we are, exactly. And you were at the NovaCare Complex yesterday. We were talking about it before hitting the record button. Just real interesting to be back to see some of these new guys out on the field. And, it's amazing the season's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, again, it's such a short amount of time that you really get to enjoy it. But at the same time, the good news is that the 2025 Eagles, who could be good and have a chance to do something special, obviously, given what they did last year, that is going to be here before we know it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's get this discussion started here. And I wanted to get into the news that Roger Goodell and the NFL front offices kind of let us in on, and Mike Florio in one of his articles this past week really put out there for the masses. Len and I were just talking about this and wanted to get your take as well, BLG, at how the NFL is looking at possibly reassessing the salary cap system, how well it's working, whether teams are operating within the, quote, spirit of that system. And it seems obvious that this is based on the Philadelphia Eagles front office and Howie Roseman, how they've been just able to find loopholes to keep and extend really talented players and veteran players. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on the NFL making a push to potentially change the salary cap system here based on what the Philadelphia Eagles do from season to season?
Yeah, well, the timing certainly isn't really, I would say, a good look in the
Yeah.
wake of the tush push ban, which
Yep.
obviously failed. It's kind of hard not to think the Eagles are being targeted in some way. And ultimately, I don't think it's just about that. In fairness, I do think that's an element. I'm not going to say it's not, but
Yeah.
I do think the problem that I think some owners are having with this system is that, and it's pathetic to be clear. I'm not defending them, but I think their stance would be that the Eagles have this advantage because of how cash forward they're willing to be, as opposed to fully just worrying about the cap,
Yeah.
and taking on more cash than other teams do. And I think some of the owners who don't want to be spending as much are annoyed by that. They don't want to have to spend that
Right.
cash to that same level, which again is pathetic. And why are you getting into the sports ownership world if that's the case? But I think that's where it's coming from, and I think that's going to be, the impetus for kind of change. There is these owners who don't want to spend that cash and want the system to change. So not just about targeting the Eagles, but certainly part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You make a really great point there too. Why be an owner? Why get into this business if you're not willing to do what you need to do to win at the end of the day, just like the Philadelphia Eagles do? But moving along with the conversation here, I wanted to dive into Nick Sirianni with you, BLG, because he has received, as we know, a contract extension from Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, and his evolution as a head coach is pretty remarkable, in my opinion, how he's really leaving his mark so early in his NFL head coaching tenure, just on the league in general. You have been behind the scenes, my friend. You have heard him. You have seen how he acts. You talk to other players and you talk to your sources as well. Is this really a coach who has taken things to the next level in terms of their growth, in terms of what type of person they are, how they relate to their players? Or has he kind of been the product of, quote, luck, maybe having the roster that he has, as well as having a really great front office with vision as well? What are your thoughts here, BLG?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to just say it's luck just because of how much he has won. The degree to which he has won, like what's it, the fifth highest winning percentage ever from a head coach. He's up there with he's like just behind like John Madden and Vince Lombardi, like these like crazy names that
Right.
you're looking
Yep.
at on that list.
And you're like, how are you in Philadelphia here?
Exactly. Yeah. It's wild. And so, but at the same time, I do believe there's a difference between correlation and causation. I think some of the biggest, most fervent Sirianni supporters, I think, like maybe don't always acknowledge that, and that it's a great ecosystem here for him. And again, to his credit, I think he's taken advantage of that and done what he's needed to do within that. And certainly, when you hear the players talk, you see a lot of support for him. You hear a lot of support for him. So that's a really good sign. I just think that, if we're being honest about it, like if you're ranking the drivers for this team's success, like he's not number one, he's not number two, and that's okay. He doesn't have to be, again,
Right.
based on the ecosystem that's here. But let's just call a spade and like not act like he is the one driving this thing as much as he is in a position where he is doing his role, and he's doing his role seemingly at a pretty high level. I think it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, how you handle success. That is a big challenge for teams, not just how you handle failure, as they did coming off the 2023 season, but how you handle the success. They didn't really handle success in an amazing way coming off their last Super Bowl.
Exactly.
So, that's the big challenge for him up next.
Yeah, great points for sure. And I also wanted to get into, during our discussion here, some of the offseason acquisitions, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through free agency, just picking up some other players who may be contributors to this team in the future. Again, you've been around some of these guys here and there, and especially at OTAs here this week. The Eagles decided to sign edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, who received the biggest veteran free agent contract from the Philadelphia Eagles. He has had health issues, which is the biggest knock on him at this point. But I mean, he's a damn good pass rusher in this league from what we have seen thus far. You put up a recent piece on bleedinggreennation.com about Ojulari, and I wanted to get into this a little bit more, just based on the contract that he was given by the Eagles, possibly what they believe in him in terms of what he can do in terms of contributions. Do you think he could be a large, maybe middle of the road, or a small contributor on defense this coming season, BLG? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm expecting more towards middle of the road. I do think he could be a solid contributor. And look, for the contract, 1 year, $4 million, like obviously worth the
Yeah.
risk. Even if he doesn't work out, even if he turns out like what Bryce Huff was obviously last year, which is not
Yeah.
good, then that's fine. You took a totally acceptable risk for that kind of contract and a player who is what 24 years old, at least was at the time of signing. But that very fact also raises like buyer beware flags that why was he available for so cheap in the
Yeah.
free agent market at such a young age for a player who's had production. And yeah, he's had injuries, sure, but still, like, there's other players who had injury issues that have gotten more money than
Yeah.
he did, certainly at 1 year, 4 million. So watching him from last year, I came away a little like less overall impressed in terms of being, a difference maker at the position. But I saw a solid player, and I think that's what the Eagles are going to get. I'm guessing this could be a situation where he has like again a solid kind of year for this team, and then maybe goes and tests the market again, finds a new contract elsewhere. But for this year, I think he can be a like again good, solid kind of contributor in the Eagles pass rush rotation. I think ideally you would want him to be like your third best edge rusher behind Nolan Smith and behind Jalen Hunt if he's able
Yeah.
to make that leap.
Yeah, it also leads me to believe that Vic Fangio has some say in this as well, and you would probably know this better than anybody out there, being a member of a credentialed Eagles reporter. Behind the scenes, it seems like you look at the NFL draft, and we're certainly going to get into some NFL or some Eagles draft pieces and what their contributions may be, but with Vic Fangio and how much influence he has behind the scenes in terms of acquisitions defensively and what he sees in them and how they can contribute to his particular system. And I'm wondering, do you think that's the case? Is he possibly seeing something in Ojulari where he's like, you know what, he is going to be a contributor based on what I'm able to do for him, how I'm able to coach him? Maybe he is coachable to an extent. I don't think we necessarily know that 100% sure yet, but I don't know. How much is Vic Fangio, do you think, playing into the acquisitions that we've seen here in the offseason?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and one we'll certainly find the answer to because you saw it again. I'll bring up Bryce Huff. Like that is a guy that Vic Fangio clearly did not love, like from the jump,
Yeah.
from the standpoint of in training camp, like multiple times talking about how he needs to get better at run defense. This is
Yes.
your top free agent signing. Like this
Yes.
isn't just like a guy like, oh, you're taking a flyer on. This is the guy you signed with all your resources, got a bigger contract than Saquon Barkley last year to
Yes.
be like, this is our guy. That's not a guy who you bring in with like, oh, if we piece it together, there's questions here. No, like you're paying for a proven kind of commodity in theory, but clearly that wasn't the case. And certainly we saw Bryce Huffman play in the preseason, and then we saw him lose playing time. He got hurt, so that kind of factored in there. But ultimately, healthy scratch in the Super Bowl, a lot of that speaks to, and a big reason why I think, his outlook moving forward is questionable is because I don't think Vic Fangio wants to play that guy.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's a good thing from the standpoint of Vic is not going to be, committing the sunk cost fallacy here.
You're right. Right.
He is if you can play, he'll play you, and if you can't play, he's not going to play you, and it's really that simple. So I think we're going to see here the how the depth chart sorts out will be based on merit, which is again a good thing. It's less in other
Absolutely.
places. There could be more politicking and things like that. But in Vic's case, I think he genuinely just goes with who he trusts and who he doesn't.
Yeah. And I look, I've been trying to assess here some of the incoming rookies to see if they're going to have the opportunity to be real contributors this coming season on the field as well, BLG. I mean, safety Andrew Makuba seems like he'll be in the mix to get some good playing time in Vic Fangio's defense. But in terms of the rookies who were just drafted, who do you think may see significant playing time, just like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean did last season? Are you seeing that at all, or is there the opportunity for these rookies to really have a significant impact this season?
I think it'd be really hard to like count on them this year's rookies having the impact that
Yeah.
Quinyon and Cooper did, just because it's just not the norm. Like that's like the incredible top possible outcome you could realistically hope for, and maybe even more than that the Eagles
Yeah.
got out of those players last year. And even if the Eagles made like great picks this year, totally, did their part to make the right picks, it could just work out that it's not going to happen that fast for these guys.
Right.
So I just like to, lower the expectations a little bit from a standpoint of it might take a little bit of time, not even necessarily after the season, but through the course of the season. Certainly in year 2, we saw Nolan Smith get a lot better over the course of a season. So, Jahad Campbell, obviously top contender. We just don't know exactly when he's going to be healthy. Still not practicing yet. That could change by training camp. We don't know. We haven't heard anything on that. So it's just, merely guessing at this point. When it comes to Makuba, he was with the first team defense on Wednesday when the Eagles were practicing. Now, the Eagles were missing Reed Blankenship there, so we don't fully know what that looks like. So we'll see, if he's back, how the starters go, whether it's him or Sidney Brown up. But I mean, look, last year, Vic Fangio, when I go back to that trust conversation, did not trust Sidney Brown to play. He was playing Tristan McCollum and Avonte Maddox over him when there were chances for Sidney Brown to play. Part of that is that Sidney Brown missed so much time in the offseason last year. He didn't really get the chance to prove that trust to Vic Fangio, and he will get that this year. So he has this opportunity to earn that from him, but it's not a given. And obviously, Vic Fangio was not here when the Eagles drafted Sidney Brown. He was here when they drafted Andrew Makuba. So I think Makuba, is in a good spot there to take that job and ultimately end up with it. But obviously, Sidney Brown is not going to go down easy. The Eagles could also sign a veteran free agent still, too, if Makuba struggles a bit. But for now, I think Makuba, probably looking like the best chance at projecting a role, especially given the uncertainty of Jahad Campbell's health.
Yeah, I think that's some great analysis there. And again, folks, talking to Brandon Lee Gowton from bleedinggreennation.com. Follow him on Twitter/X at Brandon Gowton if you are not already. I'm sure if you're listening to us or watching us, you already know about Brandon, BLG, and bleedinggreennation.com. Fantastic content about Philadelphia Eagles on a consistent daily basis. So I wanted to move over to the offense at this point, BLG. I mean, the offense last year, as we know, so potent. We saw what they did to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And as we discuss what might we see this season, some saying that we're not going to see the same Saquon Barkley that we saw last year. The offense won't be as good. There may be some regression here or there. Some say the offense is still going to dominate the league like they did last year in various ways. How are you seeing this? What should the expectations be for this Eagles offense coming into this season?
There's like 8 or 9 players that have ever had more touches in a single season than Saquon Barkley did last year. So, it's a pretty special thing he did last season. And to me, it's the best running back season in NFL history. So, the standard of, it's hard to reach that again, and probably impossible maybe to top that. So there's probably only room to go down, but even so, even if that's the case, there's still, a lot of room from that in the very bottoms. And I think Saquon will be pretty good still, but I do think that it might be hard to rely on him to the same extent that they did. And it seems kind of inevitable that the Eagles are going to have to pass the ball a bit more than they did last year. I'm not saying it has to be suddenly Jalen's dropping back, and chucking it like 35 times a game,
right.
Something extreme, but it's probably going to be after a little bit more than it was last year, especially as they're playing tougher teams too, and might be trailing in certain spots and not having the game script to be as favorable as it may have been for them a lot of the time last year. So certainly, I'm expecting differences there. You have a new offensive coordinator in Kevin Patullo, who I think has kind of been like a little bit unfairly labeled just as like a Nick Sirianni, like buddy, and like has no kind of image of his own or identity of his own. I mean, he worked at other places before he teamed up with Nick Sirianni in the NFL. So I think, he has his own ideas and tweaks and things that he can do. I'm not saying it's a night and day offense, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how it looks with a new offensive coordinator. I mean, a lot of people didn't even love Kellen Moore for most of the season, or were frustrated with him with how the offense was going at times until the very end there, really. So, I think there's room to kind of get better from there. And yeah, obviously, health is a big factor as it goes with the offensive line and everything. The Eagles have good depth, I would say, mostly on the offense, and even adding some more tight end. We'll see if Jahan Dotson can kind of have more of a role this year after not really doing too much last year. I think targeted something like 22 times by Jalen Hurts. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on as well. But overall, the big picture, I think we should see an offense that is pretty good again, just because it's so talented. And maybe you can, again, add some tweaks in there.
In terms of adding tweaks, I'd love to see more of the screen game being implemented. This is a team that really hasn't implemented offensive screens, like running back screens, too much when you have a weapon like Saquon Barkley, and you've even got AJ Dillon coming in as well. I mean, I can't see how they wouldn't go to or potentially gravitate towards the screen game on offense this coming season. That's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, just one day of practice in May, but Will Shipley was getting a lot of catches on,
Was he
on the
okay?
practice. So
Yeah.
I don't know how many of them were screens, but being a target in the passing game, we just haven't seen running backs really have that here, especially when Jalen Hurts has been and Nick Sirianni has been the head coach. Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback, so that is another element. I think that it would be nice to get a little bit more of that mixed in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, BLG, I wanted to dive into some overall NFL storylines that I know a lot of us football fans have been following over the course of this offseason here. And the one storyline, and it jumps from team to certain teams, from team to team here, about how some of these veteran quarterbacks who are going to, and we may see this season on other teams, how they're going to fare this season. So kind of want to go through Geno Smith with you, Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, and then the one and only Daniel Jones in Indiana. So I'm wondering if you can maybe give us your take real quick on how these veteran quarterbacks, in terms of these storylines, how they're going to fare with their new team. So let's start off with Geno Smith and the Raiders. How do you think he's going to fare this coming season?
Yeah, I liked the Geno trade for the Seahawks more than I really did for.
Yeah.
For the Raiders, I think it makes some sense in the standpoint of they've been just so bad for so long and so irrelevant, really, for so long that they're just trying to reach some kind of level of competency. And I think that's not like the best way to build a championship team in the long run, but I do respect it. I kind of say the same thing about like the Jags getting Travis Hunter. I don't think that's a smart trade for them in the big picture, but from the standpoint of like Jags are probably going to be terrible anyway. I think a lot of their fans know that. Why not get like a really exciting player that we can at least like glom onto that? So I do think from a standpoint of trying to get a little bit more competitive for once and not just be such a laughing stock, Geno does raise the floor there, but I don't like, what he does for their ceiling. And I'm a lot less impressed with him than NFL Twitter and mass seems to be there. So I'm not a huge fan of this one.
All right. Well, what about Sam Darnold? Had such a fantastic season in Minnesota last year. He's now heading to the Seahawks. How do you think he's going to fare this year on his new team?
Yeah, so I said I liked the Geno Smith trade for the Seahawks angle, but then they went out and signed Sam Darnold, and I'm like, I don't love that part of it. Like,
right.
I don't think I think it's good to pivot away from Geno, considering I think they kind of just reached their ceiling with him, and there wasn't really more to see. But with Sam Darnold, I mean, I just think, he was great for the Vikings last year.
Right.
But it's so hard to shake like how that season ended too for them and for him, where he kind of just looked like a deer in the headlights, like he has at other times in his career when he was younger. And I just don't think he's a difference maker for them. Like he's posting good stats like he did for the Vikings last year. But was anyone at any point like scared about having to play Sam Darnold in the Vikings? Like I don't really think so. And just, to kind of have that year, like quarterbacks have good years. We know that in Philadelphia. Yeah. We've seen that. Like Nick Foles, like has 27-2, and obviously goes on to win a Super Bowl, but like he wasn't a franchise quarterback after 27-2. So, and Case Keenum previously for the Vikings, has that really good year and then gets smacked by the Eagles in the championship game. So yeah, I'm buyer beware on that. They did draft Jalen Milroe, which I like a lot. So I think, having the two kind of options there, you see what shakes out of that. I kind of like that approach as a whole, but I'm just, I'm not high on Sam Darnold either.
Yeah, not high on Sam Darnold at all. But let's go inside the NFC East here with the New York Giants. They acquire Russell Wilson. How do you think he's going to fare?
I've been a long time Russell Wilson fan from afar, just because, he's, especially because having watched him torment the Eagles for years, it's like, damn it. Like we can't stop this guy. It's so annoying. They finally beat him for the first time last year on the Steelers. Obviously, he's not the same player he used to be earlier in his career. But, I just don't think this is going to work out I'm really hating on all of these. I just don't. You look at the Giants' schedule. It's Commanders, it's at Commanders, at Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, at Saints, and then you get the Eagles game there on Thursday Night Football.
That's rough.
Yeah, it's a rough start. So I just feel like how much, even if Russ is like playing like kind of like he did last year, like decent, that team is not very good, and they're going to be losing. And at some point, like it might not even be his fault. Could be his fault, but it might not be. And then they just want to, turn the page to Jackson Dart, as they really should, and get him in there and see what he's got. So I just don't think he has a very long leash, especially considering they have a really difficult schedule.
Yeah. And last but not least here, in terms of veteran quarterbacks going to their new teams, got Daniel Jones. I wonder, does he beat out Anthony Richardson for the starting job in Indy? How do you think Daniel Jones's career is going to go this season here?
I don't think I'm like 99% out on Daniel Jones in general. I'm not like 100% out, just from the standpoint, if he went to, like, let's say the Eagles, he went to like a really good organization that had pieces in place and stability. Like, I'd be interested to see what that looks like, a little bit after he was with the Giants. And obviously they're a disaster, but I don't know that the Colts are like that spot for him to really take off and really kind of give him the last chance to be any kind of good. So I don't think it's going to go well for him either. None of these quarterbacks, clearly, I'm thinking it's going well for. Anthony Richardson is obviously incredibly talented, but I just, man, the highs are very high in terms of the talent and what he's able to do at a special kind of level, but the lows are extremely low as well. And you're like, he's completing what, like 42% of his passes or something like insanely low. Like that's just not going to cut it at all. Like, you need more consistency than that. So maybe Daniel Jones gets a chance to play a decent amount. I could buy that, but I don't really think it's going to be a needle mover for the Colts.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so either. It was a tough offseason in terms of quarterback free agents and where they were moving. It was really tough. So BLG, before we let you go here, buddy, and it's really, the question that we're all going to be asking, all going to be talking about, we wait for that first game every season, and the Dallas Cowboys are going to be coming to Philadelphia, and the Eagles are going to be raising that Super Bowl banner, which is going to be so sweet to have the Dallas Cowboys on the sidelines while that is happening. And even though I think the Eagles are a much better team than the Cowboys heading into this season, they still have Dak Prescott coming back. He's no slouch. The Commanders have a really good team led by Jaden Daniels and a pretty prolific offense, even though I do think Jaden Daniels is going to take some steps back this season. Do you think the Eagles are still the team to beat in the NFC East this season? And can they be the first team to win back-to-back division titles since they were the last team to do it, back in the 2000s? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I appreciate that framing, because that's like, if you're going to talk about the Eagles repeating as Super Bowl champions, probably gonna have to repeat as division champions first.
Right.
Not necessarily, but probably would be a really good thing to do, and is incredibly hard to do and impossible to do, basically, in this division, as we've seen. So I think you almost have to be like a sucker each year to be like if your team wins the division the year prior, to be like, oh, we're definitely going to do it again. Like, how can you possibly believe they're just 100% going to do that by virtue of no one does that in this division? Eventually, obviously, it will be broken, but you just have to keep betting against history each year to really truly believe that. So, look, I think you outlined it well there. I mean, the Giants are a joke. I don't think they're going to be a big factor at all. And just their schedule is so tough. So then it's, is it the Commanders, who I haven't really loved their offseason? I think their draft was okay, but I didn't really love the approach of, just getting older a lot. Like, I know you're trying to take advantage of Jaden Daniels' rookie window contract there, and I respect that, and I think that makes some sense, but you don't have to do it with like players that are 30 plus, all like pretty much was like a lot of them were, and players who I question if their best football is behind them at this point, certainly like Deebo Samuel. So yeah, I just think maybe they could be in a mode where they're thinking they're a little bit closer than they are. And I think teams fall into the trap of thinking you just get to pick up where you left off last season, which is not how it works. You have to go and climb the mountain all again. That applies to the Eagles as well. So I think they could be humbled a bit this year. And I say that with still saying that I still think Jaden Daniels is really good. And I think their long-term projection could still be good. But as like people like to say, like, progress isn't always linear. So it might just be more of a step back year for them. And then all of a sudden in 2026, they're right back at it, depending on how it goes. But so that's the Commanders. And then the Cowboys, like Dak's coming back. That's huge, obviously. Typically, when Dak is healthy, they're right in the mix for the division every single year. Now, Dak did not look good before he got hurt last season. And I think that is worth noting. And he's going to be, age 32, age 33 here. I wonder how much these injuries over the course of his career have taken toll a little bit. They get George Pickens. I know people are excited about that. I think there's some buyer beware there, and that he is talented, but the Steelers typically don't move on from a wide receiver and like really regret it at all, typically. So, I think they're going to be kind of like, maybe a 10-win, 8-9-win, that kind of somewhere in that mix. So I do think it's to be a competitive division. But I think ultimately the Eagles have earned, for as much as the repeat thing doesn't happen, the Eagles have earned some level of benefit of the doubt with just how good they were last year and how much of that you're still keeping this year. So, and even though the Eagles did not win the division a couple years ago, they were right in position to before that epic collapse. So it's not like, they couldn't even get close to repeating. They were close to repeating. So I think if there could be a year, maybe it could finally be this one for them.
I hope so. Yeah, I think it would be fantastic, and I think that is what we are going to see. I know it's end of May here, folks, and training camp hasn't even started, but I think that could potentially and is a great chance to happen for this Philadelphia Eagles team this coming season. Again, folks, he's Brandon Lee Gowton, BLG from BleedingGreenNation.com. Buddy, like, where else are you out on the interwebs? I know you're all over the place. I think you're on Threads. I think you're on Blue Sky and stuff. Why don't you get that out there so folks can know where to find you?
That's right. Yeah, Brandon Gowton on Twitter, and that's probably Threads as well. And I think Blue Sky is Brandon Lee Gowton, so you have to have the middle name in there. Yeah. And then those are the main ones. BleedingGreenNation.com. Obviously, check that out. Do some podcasting sometimes as a special guest with Shil Kapadia on the Ringers Philly special from time to time. So you can check that out. Still figuring out BGN's podcast situation a whole year later.
Still,
it's not up to me. I have no control over this. It's very ridiculous. Everyone, I think, can see that. Plain to see. Still doing some NFC's mixtape YouTube episodes with RJ Ochoa. Check that out. Yep. Yes, on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to that if you want to see those videos. But I think that's about it.
All right, sounds good, folks. He again is Brandon Lee Gowton, BleedingGreenNation.com. Buddy, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much for taking the time, as always, to jump on. You've been coming on for years. Greatly appreciate you, and hope to see you at some other point down the road.
Got to keep the streak going.
Absolutely.